Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the Federal Republic of Nigeria at 50. And of course, we're indicating that this is the 51st celebration of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And we're also fortunate to have with us the ambassador to the United States from Nigeria, Dr. Adefuye. And of course, Dr. Adefuye will give us some information in reference to his background, his education, and some of his experiences during this first segment. And then after we have our first commercial break, we'll come back and talk about the great Federal Republic of Nigeria. And of course, Dr. Adefuye, let us start off by having you to give us some information about, for the first 6 minutes, about your background, your education, and some of your experiences that eventually led you to the chief representative of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to the United States of America.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and let me say how pleased I am to be here, to be in Nashville. It's been a very quite stimulating experience. And talking about myself is something one finds a bit hard to do because one was brought up as a Christian and one has to acquire those virtues, demonstrate those virtues of humility. But one has a lot of reason to be grateful to God. I often describe myself as an academic diplomat. My children met me as a university lecturer, and now they seen their dad transformed to becoming a diplomat. I started life as an academic. Having gone to the University of Ibadan, I own Harvard. I got a BA degree in history, and I went on to Uganda and also to the UK to do a PhD on aspects of colonial history of Uganda, which is the way the British related to the Ugandan people. And finishing that, I came back to the University of Lagos and worked as a lecturer and climbed all the steps from lecturer 2 to lecturer 1 to senior lecturer to associate professor and then professor and head of department. Between all this was between 1973 to 1987. And then I became professor and head of history department. Then, because my area of interest, academic interest, was on diplomacy and international relations between Uganda and the British, and then I started to take interest in relations between Nigeria and many other countries, I was always commenting on diplomatic issues and international relations issues as they affect Nigeria. I think that was what made the federal government to decide to ask me to be part of a group of lecturers who were training new diplomats in areas of diplomatic history, international relations, international economics, inter-Africa relations. And I was part of those who are training newly recruited diplomats at a place we call the Foreign Service Academy in Lagos. I did that for 2 years, 1 year every 1 month every year for 2. And the third year, after finishing the third year, I was asked to kind of put in practice what I've been preaching, to become ambassador to, we call it High Commissioner, to Jamaica in the West Indies. But then we concurrent accreditation to Belize and Haiti. It was a very good experience because being in Jamaica and seeing people of African descent in the West Indies, I thought it was necessary to use my experience as a historian to reconnect them to their homeland. And that's what I did most of that time. And it was very good experience for 4 good years. I was very well received by people of Jamaica and I enjoyed it. I think the kind of quality performance I did there influenced the government to send me to the United Kingdom as Deputy High Commissioner in charge of Nigeria's relations with many countries, many international organizations, the UN, the Commonwealth, and the European Union. And I did that for about, excuse me, for 2 years. And then, before then, I then applied to the Commonwealth. Commonwealth is a group of former British colonies who grouped themselves together to extend mutual cooperation to each other. First, I was Deputy Director of Strategic Planning, and then I was later on appointed head of the Africa program for the Commonwealth. I think I was in the Commonwealth for about a total of 12 years, and 6 of which I served as Special Advisor to the Secretary General and head of the Africa program. From then, I came to ECOWAS for 2 years, as ECOWAS is Nigeria's equivalent of your OAS and then it's a regional organization. From them I served 2 years as as advisor to the president on democracy and good governance.
Very good. And of course, Dr. Adefuye, let's take this first commercial break, and then we'll get back and we'll pick up at that same point.
Yeah.
And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to the ambassador for the Federal Republic of the West African nation, Nigeria. And he's given us some information in reference to his background, his education, and some of his experiences. And now we would like to, Dr. Adefuye, to talk about some other aspects of it, to talk specifically, since this is the 51st anniversary of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to talk about, and as a scholar in a real sense in reference to colonialism and et cetera, talk about some of the events and some of the situations over the next 8 minutes that eventually led you to independence.
Well, Nigeria was a British colony. We were colonized by the British through a series of wars and military action. Nigeria became the two sides of Nigeria, the Northern Protectorate and the Southern Protectorate, was amalgamated in 1914 to become the Protectorate of Nigeria. And then we had colonial rule, and you had the British conquered the country steadily, incrementally, and brought the whole country together under colonial rule. Colonial rule, as you all know, was a kind of carefully designed exploitation of the resources of the colonies to the advantage of metropolitan power. So colonial was such that it was for economic reasons. Tap our resources used to develop their country. And that's what happened with us. And we took part in the First World War, the Second World War on the part of the British. And after the Second World War in 1945, the doctrine of self-determination came up. And the people started agitating for independence. And the agitation for independence was led by Nigerians who had been abroad to study and who had been conversant with some of those principles. The Human Rights Declaration, the Human Rights Charter, and they began to question British rule over them, because based on the logic and principles they have learned while studying abroad. So you find the returnees, and most famous of them was Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, who was actually educated here, began to question British rule over Nigeria. And the agitation led on to series from many African countries asking for self-determination. More so as the UN, when it was conceived in when it came up in 1947, began to advocate for self-determination. So Nigerians also asked for self-determination. And so many African countries began to achieve independence. In 1957, Ghana was the first one. And then in 1960, Nigeria ultimately attained independence from colonial rule. And the green-white-green flag of Nigeria was hoisted to replace the Union Jack. And then we became independent as a nation in 1960. So we became independent in 1960, and we operated a British system of government, Westminster model, parliamentary democracy. And we went through quite a lot in the country. We went through the first set of our first set of post-independence rulers merely stepped into the shoes of the British. And even though they meant well, but the defects of the British system was still very much around. And so we had a lot of, the federal structure was not properly arranged. And so we had a foreign policy that, for instance, that spoke of non-alignment, but was really pro-Western. And then, of course, our first set of politicians saw themselves as succeeded imperialists. And so administration was done in the best interest of the people. That led to agitation among the various political parties, leading to the first overthrow of the civilian government, and then a civil war, which we fought 1967 to 70. And then, by the end of the civil war, it was clear to everyone that Nigerians will have to live together as the same people. And so the civil war ended with General Yakubu Gowon, who became head of state, saying that no victor, no vanquish, that nobody will ever question the territorial integrity of Nigeria. And we were prepared to live together as one indivisible set of people. So since then, and a lot of things happened after this. But during the Civil War, One good thing was that oil was discovered in commercial quantity, and Nigeria became an oil-producing country. Right now, we're the 4th largest supplier of crude oil to the United States. So we became, and then there was agitation for a change of the constitution. Quite a number of people believe that the Westminster model was not quite suitable. And that was why we had a military coup, we had constitutional problems and all that. And then we decided to adopt the American type Republican constitution. And so that's what we are currently practicing right now. And so we have a Republican type constitution with a presidential system, governors in states, president in the center, and that's what we've been. I mean, that's not been without. I mean, that's what some of the political scientists, some of us say that it's not the system of government that matters; it's the way it is administered. In spite of the change from the Westminster model to the Republican system, from British system to the American system, we still had military coup d'etats. We have had so many military coup d'etats, many military takeover of government. Like we had, there was one in 75, there was one in 79, there was one in 83. But right now, people are tired of military rule. Since the collapse of the Berlin Wall and the end of communism, and the wave of democracy all over the world, people are now beginning to question the rationale for military rule. So we've got to a system whereby democracy as a system of government has become established in the country. And we may have our problems, but we will not allow any set of soldiers to come and take over and take over anymore. And so democracy has come to stay. We are trying to perfect the American system to adopt it to our own peculiar situation and make good of it. And so we now have a Republican type constitution in Nigeria, and with bicameral legislature, the Senate, at the federal level, the Senate and the House of Representatives, Congress just as here, and we have a presidential system of government, a president and a vice president, and the governors in 36 states with the federal capital territory. So we have a system similar to that of yours. But there are still problems, there are still challenges in the way it is administered. So that's where we are right now.
And of course, I think we're getting ready for our first commercial break. And when we come back, Doctor, let's see if we can have you to talk about your mission to the United States of America, because serving 150 million people, you see, in the largest state on the continent of Africa, it simply means that Nigeria is somebody in a real sense, in spite of all of the problems and et cetera. And you were sent here in a real sense to represent that. And so we're going to give you about 10 minutes during this last segment to talk about what you might consider to be your mission here in the United States of America, and how you found the response in reference to some of the things that you're talking about. And that will be this first segment, and then we'll have that second show and deal with some other aspects of it. But that's what we want you to talk about when this next segment starts within the next 15 or 20 seconds, and then we'll be able to pick up at that particular point. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you, and welcome back to the final segment of this section of the show for the morning. And we're talking about the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and this, of course, is part one of that report. And we have with us the ambassador from the state of Nigeria, who has given us some excellent information in reference to the country itself. And now what we'd like to do is to talk about his mission to the United States. And of course, Dr. Adefuye, let's see if we can have you to talk about your mission.
Well, my mission to the United States is not different from that typical of ambassadors. An ambassador to a country is supposed to represent the interests of his own country in his country of accreditation. In my case, United States of America. And I'm expected to promote good relations between my country and the United States, be it in areas of commerce, in areas of culture, in areas of diplomacy, and also to, because we are a developing country and the U.S. is the most powerful nation in the world, am most endowed, to see the way in which I can relate to the United States government in a way to help achieve our developmental aspirations. To start with, there are quite a number of, I always say there's a commonality and a conviviality of interest between Nigeria and the United States. First, the United States is the country where you have the largest concentration of Nigerians outside Nigeria. And Nigeria as a country is of strategic interest to the United States. First, with a population of 150 million, 1 out of every 5 Africans is in Nigeria. 1 out of every 9 black persons in the world is in Nigeria. And Nigeria is the 4th largest supplier of crude oil to the United States. There are in the United States, there are over 1 million of Americanized Nigerians. That is, people who are born in Nigeria and have taken over the American, they've lived here enough, acquired American passports, and are contributing very positively to the economic development of the United States. So there is that community of interest. And I do know that in the United States officials recognize the strategic importance of Nigeria, because with that kind of population, that kind of strategic importance, and the U.S. being the leading nation in the world, the only superpower, America has taken it upon himself the task of ensuring there's peace and security in the world. If there has to be peace and security in the world, there has to be peace and security. There has to be peace and security in Africa. And if there has to be peace and security in Africa, that peace and security must start from Nigeria. That what the United States government has recognized, and do we also recognize, and that explains the very good nature of relations that do exist between Nigeria and the United States. That was started since when I came, and before I came there were some problems, but now the United States government, with the advent of President Goodluck Jonathan, they know that Nigeria now has purposeful leadership, a leadership that is responsive and responsible, a leadership that is willing and able, a leadership that's prepared to tackle the fundamental problems of the country and create a Nigeria which will be of immense usefulness to the United States. So we enjoyed very good relations, and my job has been to cement that relationship that do exist between Nigeria and the United States. Also, even in our strategic and foreign policy objectives, there's a mutuality of interest. Nigeria and the U.S., we want a country, we want a world that is free of nuclear proliferation, a world that is free of terrorism, and a world in which the principles of democracy, human rights, rule of law dominate, and a world in which features more of consultation, cooperation, as distinct from confrontation. And that's why our purpose, and we work towards that. Nigeria, for instance, with the actors of the U.S., we are one of the largest contributors of peacekeeping forces to the United Nations. We have been very much in agreement with the U.S. on major policy issues in recent times. We were with them on the issue of Iran nuclear non-proliferation agreement. We were with them on the issue of Libya, the issue of no-fly zone. So we cooperate at the UN to achieve similar global objectives of a world that is peaceful, secure, and ordered. And so part of my objective is to promote that and to promote economic development between the United States and Nigeria. First, and there have been very concrete ways in which we have made this possible. First, we have signed what is called a binational commercial agreement with the United States of America. A binational commercial agreement is the highest level of strategic cooperation that can exist between two countries. The Obama administration has signed that agreement only with the government of Nigeria. And there are 4 major components of that. First one is, we call it governance, transparency, and integrity, called GTR. That has to do with good governance, political correctness, and all that, democracy. And within that framework, the United States government assisted Nigeria tremendously when we conducted the last election, which was internationally accepted as very free and credible. The second one is on Niger Delta regional security. We had this problem in Niger Delta where a number of people took up arms because there was a lot of environmental pollution in the oil producing areas. And we then designed an amnesty policy to encourage those who have been fighting to surrender their arms. The amnesty policy involves retraining of these foreign militants so that can be reintegrated into society. And many of the Niger Delta governments have signed MOUs with the American public and private sectors, retraining them in America. They're all over the place. Then the regional security aspect involves our cooperation to ensure there's peace in the Gulf of Guinea coast. And in addition, in furtherance of that, the American government transferred to Nigeria a big naval warship, USD Chase, which we renamed USS Thunder. Thunder, of course, is the English equivalent of Aradu, which is the word given to the Nigeria flagship in the area. I had the privilege of receiving that ship from the U.S. Coast Guard in San Francisco, and the ship has now set sail for Nigeria. And that ship is supposed to assist us in policing the Gulf of Guinea coast. Most of the oil that was sent to the U.S. is from offshore, and with that kind of naval ship, we'll be able to check the activity of smugglers and bunkers and all that in that area. The third component of the Nigerian-U.S. Binational Commission is on, we call it energy and investment. Energy in the sense of oil and gas. Like I told you, we are the fourth largest supplier of crude oil to Nigeria. Many American companies are in Nigeria dealing with oil. And they want to increase the quality and quantity of our power generating supply. So many American companies are there helping us to increase the quantity and quality of our power supply. And the fourth one is on agriculture and food security. Agriculture, it involves increasing the quantity of our food production and also mechanizing and commercializing agriculture. On those four areas, we have a meeting. And that takes me to Nigeria back and forth. And then and it involves a steady team of officials from Nigeria to the US. We meet, sometimes we meet in Washington, sometimes we meet in Abuja. That agreement is due for a review, sometimes in January next year. And we want to extend its perimeters to bring in more issues where we discuss it. So we have a focus and a formal format for cooperation among us. And those are the more major areas in which cooperate. And those four components contribute to the realization of our national developmental objectives. And the U.S. being there for us is quite a good thing. And my government is very grateful to the United States government for their cooperation to us.
Very good.
With us in that area.
And of course, Dr. Adefuye, you know that this is the end of that first show that we're going to do here, and after which we'll come back and we'll talk about some other issues that we've already outlined for you. But we want to, for the benefit of our audience and for the benefit of those who will see this first show, we want to thank you for coming by and giving us that information. And then we'll come back again with another show. And of course, we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.